Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and television discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Koufax.
Shazam!
And the Colonel's 11 Herbs and Spices Fried Chicken presents Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and you know fried swan is my game.
And our game today is going back in time, because you know what? In 2 weeks' time, we've got ourselves a Shazam movie, so we said, let's wind back that clock a little bit to the 1970s and see what television was like, and then maybe try to, not cry ourselves to sleep. Because, today we have a very interesting first two episodes of Shazam, and that is, what year is this, 1974, was it?
1974 is when it starts.
Good job, Adam. You remembered something for once. And we'll be talking about that today, so... yeah, it's going to be a good one. Let's do this, though, real quick, gentlemen, because we have something called the mailbag that needs to be opened. So let's do that.
Bale's here.
And this one comes to us from Mike. It's entitled, Endgame, What's Next? Hey, guys, longtime listener who finally jumped on the Patreon crew a few months back. Thank you for that. I really appreciate the content you guys create every week. With Avengers Endgame quickly coming, what are your thoughts on the next phase arc evolution of the MCU? No other movies had this impact. No other movies have ever had the impact on the way we watch movies. I'm excited as I am anxious about Endgame and what follows after that. Mike. P.S. I don't have a Patreon call sign yet, so Bruce or New Sean, if you'd do me the honor.
Black Hat.
All right, Mike, you are now Black Hat. Enjoy that and put that on your business card that you give out to everybody, like you do. So in-game theories, we actually talked a good bit about this over at our Patreon episode. I know that it was actually unplanned. Sean did not know about this email, and he brought the question up in Patreon. So if you'd like an in-depth look of that, head on over to patreon.com/HMP and join up with that lovely crew today. So we'll just give like a quick thing. Sean, I know you had a specific theory.
I do. I think that everyone is in like Ant-Man has to shrink everybody, and they just stay like that for like the next like phase of movies. So phase 4 is just everyone's really tiny.
Ooh, Honey, I Shrunk the Avengers.
Yes.
Or
like Muppet Babies, but with Avengers, maybe.
Oh my gosh.
I'm all for that.
Everything
They get that
you're
time
saying is
stone,
great.
they all de-age, and then some lady walks in and all you see are her shoes and legs.
Oh my God.
And much like Muppet Babies, Nanny never fed them, and that's why they would hallucinate during every episode.
I never
They
thought
were all
about that, but
starving
that's
on that show.
fantastic.
Oh, that was the plot to Watchmen Babies also. V for
And
Vacation, a great movie.
And so that's what's going to happen is that you've got basically Avenger babies, and Nanny isn't feeding them, and they daydream into thinking that they're regular people, but they're not normal.
Not regular, not at all. Bruce, any quick passes? Any other crackpot theories? I know we talked about the one in Danger Zone. Do you
About
have
what
anything
happens
else?
after Endgame?
Oh yeah.
I think they really, really lean into the larval Earth, the world in which Spider-Ham lives, and they don't necessarily have the movie rights to Spider-Ham, but they've still got all the other anthropomorphic characters, as far as I know, like the Punisher that's a carp. I think they call him Punish Carp or something.
What now?
Yeah, I think they're gonna lean on like
There's a carp?
Doctor Doom, and like Dr. Octopus, who's actually an octopus, maybe.
Wolverdine, which is a sardine.
And was it Magneto, Ramneto or something's what they called him? Yeah, I think they're gonna lean into larval Earth.
Huh? I thought they were all fish names for half a second, but okay, we got Ram too. That works. Listen,
Captain Americat.
oh boy, there's a group of people that'll like that. I just think that it's just going to be a big giant blank sign for 3 hours going, we've already got your money. And honestly, I think it's going to be the Russos just crying in the after credits going, we need a break. We haven't stopped working for 5 years. At least 5 years at this point, right? Anyways, we thank you for the email, Mike, a.k.a. what was it again? I totally dropped out.
Black Hat.
Black Hat. Black Hat, thank you for your email. And if you'd like us to read your email, email us at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to be like Black Hat, head on over to patreon.com/HMP and get the real skinny on all the good stuff in the Dinger Zone. Let's close up the mailbag.
Fails here.
Alrighty, let's go. Here is the opening theme for Shazam.
Chosen from among all others by the immortal elders Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, Mercury, Billy Batson and his mentor travel the highways and byways of the land on a never-ending mission to right wrongs, to develop understanding, and to seek justice for all. In time of dire need, young Billy has been granted the power by the immortals to summon awesome forces at the utterance of a single word. Shazam! A word which transforms him in a flash into the mightiest of mortal beings, Captain Marvel.
And now, Ed McMahon. That was the opening for Shazam. Our first two episodes we'll be reviewing this week. Here's the IMDb plotline. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A young boy able to transform into the superhero Captain Marvel travels the country fighting evil and helping people. Well, we've done it a couple of times before, but let's see what he's got this week, everybody.
It's time for Bruce's comic book connection.
Bruce, what do you got for us this week?
Well, in this conversation before the conversation, because, next week will be the big conversation about Captain Marvel of Fawcett Comics that became Captain Marvel not in publication, who then became DC's Captain Marvel, published in Shazam featuring Captain Marvel, and then published in Shazam featuring Shazam, which they just called Shazam because Captain Marvel was called Shazam, and he is still called Shazam, even though a lot of people still call him Captain Marvel. And next week, the movie is called Shazam because Captain Marvel is called Shazam, but this week we review the TV show Shazam, in which Shazam is called Captain Marvel, not Shazam. Also, the Wizard has always been called Shazam, but as far as I can tell, the Wizard Shazam is not in the TV show Shazam, but Shazam is in the show, but he's called Captain Marvel. Now, the Marvel Captain Marvel movie did have Captain Marvel in it, but not the Captain Marvel called Shazam. It had the Captain Marvel called Marvel, but he wasn't called Captain Marvel because he was a she, and Carol Danvers was called Captain Marvel, but they called her Veers. But we're not talking
base.
But we're not talking about the Marvel Captain Marvel or Veers or Carol, who is also called Veers and Captain Marvel, but never Shazam. We're talking about Shazam. That is Shazam the TV show, not Shazam the movie, or Shazam the Wizard, but Shazam the TV show starring the superhero Shazam, but he's called Captain Marvel. But he's also called Billy. But Billy is a kid who reads the news, and Captain Marvel is an adult hero called Shazam, but not to be confused with the Wizard Shazam, who taught Billy the magic word Shazam that turns Billy into the superhero Captain Marvel, who is now called Shazam. And that means the superhero Captain Marvel, now called Shazam, has to be careful about saying his own name, because if he does, he will no longer be Captain Marvel, who is now called Shazam, even though most people still call him Captain Marvel, or sometimes DC's Captain Marvel, even though he started as Fawcett Comics Captain Marvel when Marvel Comics was still called Timely Comics, or maybe Atlas Comics, but definitely not Marvel Comics. Anyway, Captain Marvel debuted in Wiz Comics, published by Fawcett Comics, who never had a comic called either Shazam or Captain Marvel, but Wiz Comics featuring Captain Marvel, and they almost called it Flash Comics, which would have been hilarious because National Comics had a comic called Flash Comics, and then National Comics became DC Comics, which acquired Fawcett Comics solely to get ownership of Wiz Comics, which, if it had been called Flash Comics, would have been way more confusing than Shazam Comics. Now, the Captain Marvel who gets his power from the magic word Shazam that was taught to him by the Wizard Shazam, who appeared in Shazam Comics and is now called Shazam, just like the TV show Shazam, the movie Shazam, the comic Shazam, and the Wizard Shazam, well, they all first appeared in Wiz Comics #2, published by Fawcett Comics in 1939. And when asked for a comment about all this, all Gomer Pyle had to say was Shazam, Shazam, Shazam.
I'm glad we cleared all this up. Really, just
So you guys got it?
it helps. It helped with everything, and I feel smarter just for having been here today. Thank you, Bruce.
And that way I don't have to do all this next week.
Now, you guys are 80 years old. Did you watch any of these when they first came out?
I watched this whenever I could find it. It was like a treat because it wasn't on at a regular time because I was watching reruns, not first run. But on Saturday mornings, if I could catch reruns of this, I tuned in and did not leave. I would be glued to the television to see Billy Batson become Shazam, only he was called Captain Marvel.
And using my standard my standard trope whenever you say how old we are, I then have to say to you, if I'm this much older than you, why do I look 15 years younger than you?
You want yourself, young man.
However,
I'm on the case here.
I've never seen this because this is literally I was too young. I was a baby when this show came out, so I wasn't able to see it. And if it were on the TV when I was there, there's no way I would have known what I was watching. It's sort of like Baby Shark, do 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 do. Now, like kids aren't going to remember that they saw Baby Shark, do 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 do. Like they're anyway. So I never watched this. That being said, this TV show, Shazam, is the reason why I wanted a podcast in the first place. I love this show so very, very much. I loved every second of it. It is the dumbest thing you've ever seen in your life, and it is fantastic.
And I have distinct memories of things I saw when I was like 4 and 5 years old. Like I remember seeing Legends of the Superheroes, and I remember seeing this, and I can remember that even then I could tell the difference.
This one looks like they had like a budget above $8.
Yeah. Also, this one didn't have Ed McMahon.
It's true. Now this was, I'll say this, this is on the DC streaming app, which is where we saw this. They've redone this all in HD. It looks pretty good, all things considered, because my guess is they probably didn't take super good care of all the, material back in the day. But
you definitely want to see this in crystal clarity.
Yeah.
So you don't miss a second.
Because now, there's a lot of detail there.
Before we get too deep into this, I just want to comment a little bit on the opening sequence. Did the voiceover in that opening sequence sound familiar to you?
Ted Knight.
That's what I was thinking.
No. It was not Ted Knight. This was the same guy that was the narrator for He-Man. And I mean, I guess you weren't as much of a He-Man aficionado as I was, Sean, but I always know the intro to He-Man. But it's Lou Scheimer of Filmation. This was produced by Filmation, a live-action project produced by Filmation, which I guess in the 70s, Hanna-Barbera wasn't the only cheap animation studio to take a stab at cheap live action. Filmation
they
got
did
in
garbage.
On
we can do garbage too.
Yeah, but Lou Scheimer, one of the owners of Filmation, I believe, but he also did a lot of voice work for both the cartoons and the voiceover on this.
Great work.
And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but just another basic. How did you guys feel about the way that the Council of Elders is like a matte painting with the moving lips? Like, would it have been that hard to find 3 or 4 more actors to just put in some costumes?
I almost wish they were like that way that you do the thing animation where like the human lips come in and just and are there for the animated face. Those were actually, I thought they were just regular animated things.
I think those were rotoscoped. Yeah, I think those were rotoscoped human lips, but still they look sort of animated. But man, it is weird. It's like, and they're an animation company, Filmation, and the fact that that's the corner they decided to cut on this show. Honestly, how expensive could it have been to find people, 3 people to put on some costumes from the Halloween store and stand there and say a few things?
I still think it's better than Mork talking to Orson.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh man,
that's no good. That was always just like, but you're right. This very much has. They all have that same sort of after school vibe and everything. We get through, we have the story, and then we have our lesson, and then we get what's his nose to come back in and be like, hey everybody, and I swear to you, the first episode where he comes back for the rejoinder and everything, and I went, hi, and then he does it, and I about flipped out. It was great.
It's
Now,
so great.
I didn't notice it as much in the first one, but in the second one, it really exposes the little message at the end. Really exposes the acting limitations of Jackson Bostwick, because it's clear that he can't even get through that whole thing in a single take. Like, there's some clear cuts where they had to like piece sentences together because he couldn't even get through the whole paragraph, which is not a long or complex paragraph.
It's like,
Which
okay,
also
quick, cut in
makes
close.
it great. That's what makes the show so awesome.
The second one is great because there is such a hard edit in there. And
Yes,
if they
that's
went
what
back,
I'm talking
if
about.
they went back
So
and
good.
redid all this, like, you know, they looked at that and they were like, that's all we got. That's how we're working it. Shut up.
So good.
And I think this was kind of made at a time where if you were going to make a show for kids that had any kind of product tie-in, and, you know, there is a comic book, Shazam, that you had to have that lesson at the end. I mean, that stuck around for about 15 years. That's why at the end of G.I. Joe, you know, knowing is half the battle, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of Transformers, they did something like that. But
Body massage.
anything for kids that had like a product tie-in, you had to have like an educational or morality
He-Man had
selling
that,
point
yeah.
to make it.
He-Man had
Nowadays,
the
you don't have
lesson
to.
afterwards, and what was the other? There's a couple others. Yeah, they all just had like, hey.
It's also funny how those lessons haven't aged well. like that second episode again, and we'll get into some meat and potatoes of the episodes, but I just want to jump through. Like, the moral at the end was, you know, people with disabilities are almost human. You should treat them like they're almost human.
That was true. It's just like, you know what?
They
you
can
should
do almost
spit on
anything
these
a real
people.
person can.
Oh, so good. So good. Body massage. Full body massage.
Look, you're better than them, but you don't have to keep reminding them, okay?
Oh
Now-
my god, it's one of the like it's one of my favorite things about the show is the little thing at the end where, I mean, just because it feels so off and it looks so weird and the guy totally doesn't want to do it. It's
Yeah.
kind of like I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but my kids were like right in the sweet spot when Blue's Clues was on with Steve.
Oh, yeah, the Steve.
And Steve so very clearly did not want to be on that show after a while. Like, when you're watching it and it's just like, oh, that poor guy. And he's just like screaming through his eyes, get me out, get me out
You're
of
right,
here.
because like at first you do kind of like, because there's spark, there's joy in his eyes when he's doing. It's like, I got an acting role, I'm making money, I'm paying my rent, this is fantastic. And as the show goes on, you can see that sparkle go away from the eye, and the dear Lord, just kill me now.
And also, Blue's Clues or a show like this is one of those shows where you make enough that it's a good steady gig and you're happy to have it, but you don't make enough that like you can do it for 7 years and never have to work again.
Right.
Like, you still need to show up first day of filming every season because, you know, it's a good job, but it's not so good that like it lasts for years what you make per episode.
That's what I really wonder about that progressive lady. I wonder what she's pulling down for that at this point. You know?
She's a multimillionaire.
Oh, I know.
without a doubt.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, I guess she's just riding the train till it decides to, you know, take off. Good for her, though. I mean, hey, if it,
Hey,
great,
you
great
know,
if you
Mr.
can get it,
Whipple,
you know what I mean?
he retired very comfortably.
I hate your guts.
Now, the first episode starts with the hard-hitting topic in the 70s of kids stealing cars.
Yes.
Which,
And I need to ask this question, right?
Yeah.
So they're all wearing the same jackets, which, by the way, are awesome. They're awesome.
First two notes I had about this episode was, number one, are they supposed to be some like lame street gang? And number two, would you guys be interested in getting matching jackets so the three of us could
The
have?
Oh
answer
my
is yes,
gosh, yes.
As long as they look like those jackets.
Man, I would love
look
for us
amazing.
to have matching jackets. We would find excuses to be in the same place. At
Do
the
we
same
want
time.
like? Okay, we have to make this. Like, is it exactly like those, or do we want like maybe like a windbreaker type sort of thing? Is it more like a the Avenging Angels?
We need racing stripes on the sleeves. That I
For
demand.
sure.
That's I thought that was a given.
I want to look like this street gang. I
Are
want them
we
to look
supposed
exactly like that?
like they never comment on the fact that they're all wearing matching jackets. So either, you know, I assume we're supposed to think they're kind of a gang, which, man, what a sorry looking gang. But also
Oh.
there's a part of me that thinks maybe their wardrobe department only had one kind of kid's jacket.
Maybe this was one of the gangs in the movie The Warriors that we didn't get to see.
That's a C-list gang.
Oh, the matching jacket bicycle boys.
That's right. The matching and by the way, their bikes also match, except for the one kid.
Who's
the
got
one
the
kid
10
who's got
speed with the
problems, or he's like, I don't want to steal a car, guys. This feels weird to me. And all the other guys, the two other guys with bikes, didn't give the black kid the bike. By the way,
I know
black
we
kid
need
doesn't
to
have his
point
own
out.
bike.
Poor
I
cat's
don't
got
know
to
if
sit in the
this was
back.
intentional or they just ran out of bike money in the budget. But you're trying to be like this street gang is not intimidating to start with, and then they're riding two up on a bicycle.
Man.
And these are some ugly. Like, my goodness, I'm so happy that by the time I was of bike riding age, BMX was a thing.
Yeah.
Because we all had like 20-inch BMX bikes. These guys have those ugly 70s banana seats and sissy bars.
The
And
big old sissy bars coming in there, boy. Woo.
Yeah, man.
All they're missing is some tassel.
Like, oh man, if I rode this bike around my friends at the age these actors are, the first thing they would say is, "Hey, why'd you steal your little sister's bike?"
Straight beat down.
And the cool thing is that one, it is functional and it looks fantastic. Their clothes and the bike combo looks great. But the other thing is that the African American actor, the only African American actor on this entire show ever, who's playing the gang kid, the kid in the crappy gang, he moved on to be a director for television, and he's been steadily working in television for like 50 years.
Now, I did not know that fact, but I did think watching this, like, this guy's the best actor on this show other than maybe the old man.
He had the most charisma, for sure.
And he had a Gilligan hat. You can't pull off a Gilligan hat if you don't have some talent.
He was like, he was the biggest of all the kids, but you couldn't not look at him because he had that star quality that the rest of these kids don't have.
He also has the most to do in this show, though. He's got the hilarious plum gag.
The plum bit's great.
Now, I've got a question. I understand that in the 70s there was an oil embargo and gasoline became very expensive and people had to cut back a little bit on their expenses in life in general. But was there like a scissor shortage or something? Because, man, these are some ugly haircuts.
Oh, yeah, you walk in and you're just like, can I have the Janis Joplin, please?
Can you give me a haircut that makes it look like I haven't had my haircut in a long time, but just a hint that I actually made the effort? Like, it's this weird in between where it's not just wild and unruly and long. Like, there's a little bit of feathering going on here or something.
Yeah, because it looks awesome. I don't understand your hatred for the style of the 70s, sir.
Now,
and let's go down this street gang. Let's go down this street gang avenue just a little bit more, because the kid on the 10-speed bike, which has the handlebars put on backwards or upside down rather, like was that a style choice? Did somebody actually say, you know what? I think it'd be cool if we put these handlebars on upside down, or was it just like my father-in-law did to my wife when she was a child? He just didn't know how to put the bike together and put them on upside down by mistake. Like, I think, honestly, there was a mistake involved.
I feel
in
it's
that
something they just bought at a pawn shop, and they were like, that's the bike, shut up.
No!
Somewhere in the chain of custody, a simple mistake was made. And
Oh,
no one
you
wanted
guys
to
are killing me right now. Look, you put the handlebars on upside down because that makes you lean into the bike more, and that gets less drag.
But if you put them on the right way, you can actually lean over further. I mean, they're made so you put your forearms on it and they're below the profile of the bike, and you're actually laying flat.
What's cool about that?
Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you that a Mr. I don't know, who's a famous bike racer who isn't like scandalously thought poorly of now.
Guy Chablis.
Bicycle racer I can think of.
That person doesn't exist.
His name is Guy Chablis, and he's a great, he's a great
point made. I have to concede that point. You defeated me. You defeated me on the 10-speed debate. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a guy with a 10-speed in a street gang who's wearing Oshkosh Bagosh overalls.
Which is awesome. Again, you know, everything that you're saying, which is lame, is actually super awesome.
I feel like this guy accidentally got on the wrong bus in Indiana, got off the bus at a street gang meeting in Los Angeles, and just went with it.
Now, I'll say this about that kid, and all these kids, actually. These kids all rode their bikes. They did a good job. Like the one kid comes in, he's does a sweet little slide move in and everything. That's how kids rode bikes, and you wouldn't see that today, and I don't think a kid today could do that move.
So, following this street gang thing, do you think these guys ever had a turf war? Like, I'm assuming they're in Los Angeles, or at least near Los Angeles. So can you picture them having like an all-out brawl with MS-13?
Yeah, I mean, they steal the second car from a Ralph, so they're definitely in L.A.
Yeah, I think that the Latin Kings have something to worry about.
I can't really picture them holding a large territory. I'll be honest. First off, there's only
a large territory, not even a medium territory, you say?
Yeah, they can hold the parking lot as long as no one knows that it's a parking lot.
We rode the parking lot of Ralph's.
When the leader of your crew has a difficult time driving a car, yeah, I mean, he's a psychopath and doesn't know how to drive a car.
Not for nothing, that kid backed out of that spot really well for somebody who had quote unquote zero experience driving cars.
That was true.
I was like, oh, he's going to screw it up right here.
That was a pretty nice car they steal.
Yeah,
it was shiny. Great. It was a convertible. I liked it. They had good taste in cars to steal.
Didn't put the top down. A little bit disappointed in that. I mean, it's like, come on, boys. I mean, I know you're stealing some stuff, but, have a little bit of fun while you're at it.
And I do have to say the gang leader does say the line where he goes, this car works differently than my dad's car.
That was a really good line. I liked that.
That is a great line because I still hear that line today when it comes to certain people. Oh, this works a lot differently than my car. Oh, does it really?
Because you're doing a bang-up job with it.
And I do like it. I mean, these people are going out in public, these kids, specifically to steal something, and they think it's totally irrational that the one guy wants to lock up his bike. Like, they know that it's a high-crime area because they themselves are there to commit crime in the area.
Hey, so my other buddy stole your bike from you, you jerk. That's what happened.
They told him he'd put locks on his socks if he could, and that gave me some ideas. I called up my patent attorney, and they told me, nope, not going to happen. But anyway, back to the story.
Well, to get to the bike thing, because you brought it up, does the kid take it super personal that only his bike is stolen? The other bikes are completely fine.
You saw what the other bikes look like. They don't have to lock up the banana seat sissy bar having goofy little sister bikes.
Yeah, they should have had a point. It's like they left
about those are way cooler bikes.
That's true.
No, the 10-speed is cool.
Oh my God. I don't even know who I'm talking to anymore.
No, I think the 10-speed had more street value. They're just taking it to a chop shop.
Oh, that makes sense. You get more for the gears.
Yeah, exactly. Who wants a 1-speed when you can have a 10-speed? It's like almost 10 times as many speeds.
Now,
it is.
Something that's
almost.
It's just about. Something that's really weird about this though. This came out in 1974, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also out in 1974, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now follow me here. Why on earth in 1974 did we think it was okay to have these like octagon glasses? Because Jerry in Texas Chainsaw wears those too, and I wanted to murder him as well.
Got to tell you, I think the glasses are pretty sweet.
Those glasses
in the 10-speed.
Like what? Like circles weren't good enough for you? The regular rectangle, that's no good. You gotta go octagon or whatever. It is.
I'm all for the 6-sided glasses.
How many times?
I think those are prime for a comeback.
I was about to say. Let me ask you something. How many of those you figure? People come in looking to see you. How many of them wearing them? Huh? None.
Not enough, but they're all losers. The cool dudes have these glasses.
He lets them know every time. He just goes, listen, your vision's fine. Hasn't really changed much in the last 3 years. I do want to talk about these loser glasses you're wearing, though.
What do you think about stop signs?
What are your feelings? Good?
I have people that come in to get reverse LASIK. They naturally have good vision. They pay me to mess it up so they can buy those 8-sided glasses.
Give me them 8-sided glasses, boy. I got to get some.
Reverse LASIK.
And then
you mess me up real good.
This is the kind of show that when you're watching, your mind may tend to wander to other subjects a little bit.
Not mine. I was engaged.
Well, when they started calling the guy Chicken, and they were dancing around, and then I thought a little bit about Marty McFly and how he didn't like to be called Chicken, and how this kid kind of has a Marty McFly moment a solid 12 years before we would see the same thing out of Marty McFly. But then,
get Bob Gale on the phone. He stole this.
I kept thinking about Arrested Development because they all have the great
crazy chicken. the another half season of Arrested Development landed on Netflix not too long ago, so watched that recently. But anyway, how did chicken come to mean what it means? Like, do you guys have any idea? Because anyone who spent time around a chicken knows that they're pretty darn brave for a bird.
Yeah, I think they're more jerks. But if you try to, I mean, I guess you can chase them and stuff, and they run away from you. I guess that's good. Like, hey, what are you scared of me killing you? And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, a little chicken, man, a small chicken, if it's got a bad attitude, will hurt you. And I think if somebody said, man, you're chicken, you should say, thanks. You mean like I'm a little guy who can take down somebody that's 30 times my body weight? I'll take that. Because I'm not messing with
Colonel
angry
Sanders? Chicken.
Can I say this? Chicken Hawk, one of my favorite, merry melodies. Oh my gosh.
Mine too. Although I
Gosh,
gotta tell you, the overly polite chipmunks are still my favorite.
Oh yes, right this way, sir. Oh
You
no,
know what?
after
No,
you.
No, I insist.
Oh,
I think
that's so lovely.
chipmunks are way more cowardly than chickens. Like the insult should be to call somebody a chipmunk or a squirrel because they run every time I come close to them.
Man, you ain't nothing but a
Around the
squirrel.
next time I like to be around next time you call somebody a chipmunk and see what their reaction is.
What are you, chipmunk?
What are you, chipmunk?
I don't even know how to make a good chipmunk.
That's
sound.
I like that. I thought that was pretty good. It seemed like chipmunk squirreling away, if you will.
I felt like I followed the plot pretty closely, but I'm not sure I know what.
Oh, it must have been a tough one.
I'm not sure I'm real clear on what happened to the stolen car. Like I remember, for some reason, Billy Batson thinks the first order of business should be to try to rescue the kid in Billy Batson form. Like why it takes him getting injured to realize he needs to become Captain Marvel, I don't know. But once he rescued the kid, I still don't know. Like, did the car ever get back to its owner? Is it just floating out there? What happened to the stolen car? I feel like they dropped that thread.
Well, so maybe my version of this show is different than yours, but you see because the next scene is you see the owner filling out an accident report at the police station, and there's a lot of paperwork involved, and there's a lot of like the police saying like, this isn't a high priority on our list, so
Never in a million
if
years.
we find it somewhere, we'll give it to you then. And then her just sitting at home.
And they say like, don't hold out much hope for the CCR tapes that are in the car.
Exactly. And the husband comes home and he's like, honey, what happened to the car?
She left the keys in him and he slaps her. And then Captain Marvel comes in and protects her.
And he goes, I don't work my fingers to the bone so that you can just have your car stolen because you leave the keys in the ignition. How many times do I have to tell you don't leave the keys in the ignition? You need to care about your things more.
You ever meet those people?
Scene?
No.
Those people, like they still like existed even like a couple years ago. Like when I was 16, like I worked at a grocery store. And you'd go and put people like groceries in people's cars, and I was shocked at the number of people who just literally left their keys in the ignition. I mean, it's just like real crazy time stuff. It's like, are you kidding me?
They're lucky the Banana Seat Bicycle Boys weren't in their town.
They would have.
I do have to say, if you live in a tiny little town, like what this gang of toughs live in, a very small looking town, it looks like, then I can understand leaving your keys in the ignition when you're home because everybody in town already. But I if you're in a major city, why would you ever do that? And I know that you live pretty close to a major city, Adam.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it was like, we were like, I grew up in a pretty small town, but even,
oh, you did?
Yeah. So I grew up in a town of like, I don't know how many maybe 10, 15,000, something like that.
I grew up in a town with 2,500 people. Really small town. And the fire department left their keys in a fire truck, and a guy stole it and drove it to his house.
Ah, crap. Rick stole the truck again.
Did they know who did it right away?
Well, the story, I wasn't there. This is all secondhand, but the police came to his house, knocked on his door, and said, we're here to talk to you about that fire truck. And his response was, what fire truck? like, and we're not talking a big spacious house with a huge driveway or anything. Like the fire truck probably was larger than the abode he lived in.
Oh, man,
and that was his defense. What fire truck?
I'm
I don't
sorry?
know how that got there. This is the first I've heard of a fire
This
truck.
is as much as a surprise to me as it is to you. What is this?
just trying to find some common ground we can all agree on.
Sounds
I
like
think
framework.
when it comes to this first episode ever, the pilot, if you want to call it, of Shazam, there really needs to be like a Grand Theft Auto Shazam edition, which is just this episode that you can play. But you can't play as Shazam. You have to play as the kid with the 10-speed.
The kid, the street toughs. First of all, I do want to say this. I like this director's name. He directed both of these episodes. Hollingsworth Morse. Very, very erudite. Love it.
Probably not his real name.
Oh, what are you saying? The great Hollingsworth North is not being... How dare you, sir?
And then the thrilling conclusion is the kids decide to go hide, and they go hide in a car. But they also happen to choose like this van, this like 70s style van. It's
Oh,
parked
this is
right
great.
next to the car crushing machine. And
Well,
even,
let's-
you know,
Let's go back. I mean, let's go backwards for a second because we
Okay.
haven't even talked about Billy Batson or Shazam or Mentor or their awesome
That's true.
Winnebago.
this
we
is
haven't
so
talked
much
about any
less
of these.
interesting than the kid in the oval glasses or the
What
hexagon
are you
glasses.
talking about? You have because first of all, one of the great things about Shazam is the wish fulfillment, right? If you are a 10-year-old boy, I mean, it's even like if you're coming at this clean, if you are a 10-year-old boy, do you want to be like Superman? Yes, of course you do. Shazam is actually a 10-year-old boy who turns into Shazam.
It's true.
And that's awesome. However, on the TV show, you have a 23-year-old kid who turns into a 35-year-old.
Yes.
Where is the wish fulfillment there?
And I remember also watching this first episode. It's not the same in the second necessarily, but in the first episode, the actor playing Billy Batson, I'm thinking he looks like a pretty fit, athletic kid. Like, I don't think he needs to be Captain Marvel to take down the street gang. Like, I
Yeah.
can see Billy Batson just slapping all four of those kids around and act like you got some sense, Buster, and
Like
that's the end of
when
it.
the transition comes, like in the little special effects they do for the transition from Billy to Captain Marvel, like he gains like maybe 2 or 3 inches in height, and maybe 20 pounds. That's about it.
And also, he just skipped the greatest years of his life. Like, going from 22 years old to 35 is
It's
not
the
awesome.
opposite of wish fulfillment. It's like what happened to me because of my time spent in education. It's like I'm 18, everything's looking up. Next thing I know, I'm 30. What happened?
Yes, exactly. The entire reason this character exists is completely off the table. And also, Adam, you had the point here. The kid who's playing the grown man who's playing Billy Batson is clearly somebody who is from California because he's super tan.
Yeah.
He's like super like, oh hey man, whatever, whatever.
That
like he just
awesome
has that-
hair.
Yes. He totally has that feeling to him. And then he turns into a 35-year-old man who's clearly not from California.
Hi everybody.
It's like, hey, how's it going?
And
He
it
looks like
also-
he looks like he had a couple of drinks before he put on the costume.
And also, early on in this episode, I don't know exactly what the mentor, the old man, says to Billy, but he says something about vacation and how it's not as great as they'd imagined. And Billy says, yeah, but at least I have a break from reading the news report. Like that's something from the comics that I don't know everyone knows, but in the original Fawcett comics, Billy Batson was a child, a child without parents. The term they used back then was an orphan. He was an orphan who somehow got a job as a news broadcaster on the radio. And then here,
Like you do.
Billy, and this Billy Batson is like, oh man, sitting in front of a microphone. I mean, what could the world's longest news report in 1974 possibly take? Maybe 90 minutes if they're really working the kid hard, right?
They're still working over there in Nam. What else?
So he considers it preferable to ride in a Winnebago with this old guy that can't help but fart. He doesn't even know when he's farting. Like,
Hey,
they're
man,
leaking out the whole trip. There's no way that kid thinks riding in that Winnebago is a break from reading the news report into a microphone.
Especially because the old man's diet only consists of Franks and beans. You know that
Oh,
just by
man.
looking at him. And I love how like everyone just, and we'll talk about it later, but like it's always mentor. No one just goes, what's your name, like Jack or something? Can I call you anything other than mentor?
Give me
Hey.
your Christian name.
Yeah,
When
please.
you're fleeing cross country in a Winnebago with kid,
You don't
you
ask
don't want to
questions.
give people your real name.
It's mentor. It's mentor. Is that what's that? Spanish?
I do like also that the kid that Billy Batson, we keep calling him a kid. He's not a kid. He's
supposed
a
to be.
grown man. I do like that a 22-year-old man who's sitting next to this old guy. The old guy is like waxing philosophical on stuff, and the 22-year-old man is sitting next to him, just taking it all in. You know, like every 22-year-old would do. Oh boy, he's telling me yet another story that I don't care about.
I also love like throughout both episodes, him just kind of like going back and just having the elder talk and everything. It is so hilariously bad that it's just, it reminded me of that Simpsons episode where the Germans take over the nuclear power plant, and he's just like, oh yes, we are from the land of chocolate, and Homer thinks, land of chocolate, and then he has this whole fantasy where he's going around biting, dogs made of chocolate and mailboxes and everything. They come back and they go, Mr. Simpson, oh, I'm sorry. We were talking about Land of Chocolate. That was 10 minutes ago. That's exactly what Billy Batson does. He just goes off into his own little land, starts thinking about his little animated characters, and the old man's just like, are we going to fight this rattlesnake or what?
And it's interesting that he goes straight to the Council of Elders instead of just having a drawing of the wizard Shazam for him to go talk to, which would be a little more comic book accurate.
Or
Yeah,
just
that's
ask the old man a question.
That is something that this show desperately needs, is the accuracy of the comic books. It needs to stay closer to that for sure.
And I still say that the more you know moment at the end should have just been, kids, remember, if you're going to hide in a car, never hide in a car that is near a car crushing device.
Don't you also love, like you don't think about that car crushing thing, and I was just going, why doesn't he just wave this guy down? Because someone's operating this machine. It's not autonomous. Someone just wave at him, go, hey, there's somebody in here. You better stop it, kind of thing. But nah.
I'm really proud of the creators of this TV show, though, because they that they want to give it like the $6 Million Man treatment or the Superman treatment or even the Bionic Woman treatment, where Shazam can either hear them in there or see them through the car like Superman, and they don't do any of that. He just keeps wandering around the junkyard and finding Heathcliff and all of those.
And I've still got to harp on this point. That junkyard was full of at least 300 cars.
Sure.
Why hide in the one directly next to the car crusher?
Listen, these kids were leading that gangster lifestyle. They don't have time to stop and think about these sorts of things.
Guys, this is way better than that time we hid in the wood pile right next to the wood chipper.
My question is that what is the operator thinking? Because you got the crane operator there, and Shazam saves the day at the last minute by holding on to the crane so the kids can get out of the car. No one says anything at all. Like, Shazam finally lets go of the thing, and the thing goes up with the crane, with the jaws and all that stuff. No one says anything after
I'm telling
that?
you, boss, a guy in pajamas came out.
They missed a chance to have that classic 70s moment where you show the crane operator looking at Shazam doing some superheroic feat. Then he looks down at his bottle of whiskey he was drinking on the job, shakes his head no, and throws it out the window. Like,
man,
that. I'm never
I
drink
am a sucker for that.
Yeah, I love that moment.
No more drinking on the job for Gus.
Those Superman tropes are my favorite tropes ever. You know that I love those so much. I wanted to see an African American gentleman walking through the junkyard going, "Say, Jack, that is a bad outfit."
Yeah,
in the movie.
This is a fly PJ, son. Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, like something like that. Everyone just stares at Shazam like everybody knows who he is already.
Oh, you're Shazam from the television or Captain Marvel from the TV or whatever.
Yeah. I heard about Captain Marvel on the radio from some annoying kid who reads the news report.
He's squeaky as crap, and we all hate him, but the Shazam stuff's cool. And then he's like, just seething.
And this show went on for 3 years?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you think Billy Batson lost his job at the news station? Like, do you think they held a spot for him for 3 years?
No, they were just that was the ploy to get him out of there. They're just like, you know what? How about you go on the road with this old man?
Well, I don't want us to run out of time before episode 2 gets its due.
Oh, please.
So I'm just going to go ahead and rush into it and say it opens with no explanation whatsoever. We just see what is a kid stereotypically pretending to be blind out in the middle of a stream.
I knew that kid was blind. I didn't need to know anything. I watched that kid. First of all, that kid's acting leapt off the screen. I was like, this character's blind. And sure as shooting, blind.
Agreed. because the kid was selling it. Also, Bruce, I need to remind you that Avengers 2 Age of Ultron, Joss Whedon just drops you right into that action. And the makers of Shazam do the same thing. Look, they're not going to set this up.
We don't have time.
I hope Endgame starts with a kid in the middle of the river with both arms out, just flailing about aimlessly.
Man, I did too. Oh man, that'd be
Russo
so good.
brothers, there's still time for a quick reshoot.
Perfect. Endgame could learn a lot from being the second episode of Shazam. We're literally the plot is a blind kid saves his brother after getting bit by a rattler.
Now, here's what I love too, man, and I think I'm going to blow past the first part of episode 2 because it doesn't have all the interesting street gang related things that the first episode had. But when Billy Batson is talking to this blind kid and he wants to like give him some people to look up to, he mentions Jose Feliciano right off the bat.
I love how like he goes through the kid's record collection and it's all blind people, just like blind people like can't listen to anybody but Stevie Wonder and Jose Feliciano.
But man, it's been such a long time since I've seen Jose Feliciano get his due in a superhero movie. I'm glad he did.
Jose Feliciano Jr. is like, yes, that's a check right there.
Now, I know he did the famous Christmas song and he did a cover song of Light My Fire. What is your favorite Jose Feliciano song?
I honest to goodness, I love Feliz Navidad. I think it's a stupid, fun song that's just like, it's so dumb. It's one of those so dumb it's fun again, It goes around in that circle.
How about you, Sean?
I don't have a clever retort. Otherwise, I would say something hilarious right here.
Insert your own hilarious joke.
I like the cover. He did a cover of The Doors' Light My Fire. I think he sang it better than Jim Morrison.
Listen, Jim Morrison was the weakest part of The Doors. Come at me, people. HearMoviePodcast@gmail.com.
He's doing mostly covers. I see.
Yeah. I mean, I think he did. I think his thing.
He'd write his own material, but he couldn't read it back later because it wasn't in Braille.
Well, I think honestly what his thing was he would take like a hit in the U.S., do a Spanish language version of it, and then also do an English language version of it.
That's a smart move.
So like you'd buy the record and side A would be like the English language version sung by Jose Feliciano, and side B would be the Spanish language. But don't quote me on that.
I
may have
my
been confused with somebody else.
I've got my favorite Jose Feliciano. It's the theme to Chico and the Man. That's my favorite Feliciano.
Yeah, you got to go with that.
Stevie Wonder and a lot of other blind people. Come on, blind people got it going on. What's your problem?
Ray Charles, Jose Feliciano, Stevie Wonder.
Did I say Ray Charles yet?
Did I say? Yeah, you keep going back. It's Ray Charles. You said Ray Charles already. I really like Ray Charles.
Neo at the end of the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, I've got something else I want to just throw out there at you all. After we get our matching street gang jackets and we have to hang out together so people, what's the point of having matching jackets if people don't know about it, right?
True.
I think we should play Jingle Bell football too. Like we should all close our eyes and play some Jingle Bell football.
That sounds dirtier than I think it probably is.
And it is also amazing to me, like I don't know the lifestyle choices that this family has made. The parents are not at home. They leave the son who clearly hates his vision-impaired younger brother in charge of him. And they also have a Jingle Bell and a football conveniently located next to each other so that a stranger who doesn't know the way around the house finds both easily.
Just think of that guy.
I think there's a cult involved here somewhere is what I'm getting at.
I've got to say, I had massive problems with the fact that Billy Batson was talking to the blind kid like he was a dog.
You're a good little blind boy, aren't you? Yeah, that's a good one.
You're a good boy.
He rubbed him behind his neck.
Yes, that did stick out to me. Good boy. Good boy. Like I was waiting for him to, I don't know, throw him a treat or something. But if the treat didn't have a jingle bell on it.
Gonna hit him right in the forehead.
But it is weird because you do have like some of those people that you meet, like you'll just start talking, like not me, but because I don't like most people, so I don't care what I do. But those people that just start talking slow to like people that like English is their second language or something, but they start just, hey, you stupid like it's the worst.
Now, I also like the shocked reaction that the brother has. He's blind. How could he possibly catch a football? How could he possibly throw it? Like, I can understand maybe you're not expecting your vision impaired younger brother to catch the football, but the fact that he can throw it, like, Come on.
Anyone can throw a ball, sir.
Yeah, and also I'm just going to say the jingle bell doesn't help you really know where to throw the ball. It does help with the catching. I get that concept, but you know, does it really help that much to throw it?
Also, you know, I have to say, for a kid who lost his sight, you know, like if you were born blind, then it's a totally different story. But this kid wasn't blind a year ago.
A year is all he's had, and I'll be honest, that kid's doing pretty well for only a year under his belt with this condition.
I would be a mess mentally.
Oh,
if
it'd be
that happened.
horrible.
But I just do want to say, like, if you have a low vision member of your family, particularly someone who recently has become low vision like this child has, maybe you don't live around like huge rocky crags, snake infested wilderness. Like, how about you look into an apartment complex close to the bank?
And you know what? He didn't touch one person's face throughout this entire thing, and I didn't buy that.
I was waiting for him to sculpt Lionel Richie's head, to be honest.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
That would have
Now,
been great.
I will tell you that my experience with TV shows from the 70s, and I watched a lot of reruns of TV shows from the 70s during my formative years. You may not be able to tell that by how I act today, but they led
Did you hear the Dinger Zone today? All right, go ahead.
They led me to believe rattlesnake bites were going to be a much bigger problem in my life than they really were.
Yeah, that rattlesnake bites,
Quicksand.
Quicksand, the Bermuda Triangle. These are three things that I thought.
Yeah,
as
we
an
don't hear
adult,
about the
I
Bermuda
was going to
Triangle
have to be
anymore.
very
That's a
mindful
shame.
of.
And I also thought there was a chance I would run across an old Japanese person who didn't know World War II was over.
That's also true. It's also true. I thought there would be a whole lot more gremlin attacks.
But anyway, you know, the rattlesnake bite, what kind of first aid did they give this guy? Because I know in the 70s, what you were supposed to do isn't necessarily what you're supposed to do now.
Suck
But I
out the
know I
venom.
watched enough like movies where you immediately start sucking the poison out of the hole.
Yeah,
And I didn't see anybody start doing that. Did I miss it?
that's what I thought you should, like, that's the immediate go-to. It's just like, look, kid, you're right there. You know, you might be blind, but I think he could point you to it. You know what I'm saying?
When you're
and like
blind, you don't. When you're blind, you don't start. No. If you can see,
listen,
if
we
you
all
can
know
see
where you're
you're
going with
going,
this, Leslie,
sir.
and I'll
I
be
see
darned,
where
this is
you're
a
going,
family
sir.
show.
if you can see the snake bite, sure. But anybody who's had an older brother knows you don't believe him. You don't take it at face value. You believe him enough to maybe go for help.
Hey, that's a
But if
snake
you
bite, and then he
can't see the
farts in your
snake bite,
face.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did they at least put on a tourniquet or something?
He did.
He did.
He wrapped up a thing above it, so at least he knew to do that. I'll give him credit there. But I love how the first thing he does is like, I'm going to go fly back all the way to the Winnebago, and I love the first aid kit where it actually said like paramedic kit or something like that.
Yeah.
But it was in like
And
a thing that you put a tuba in.
I do like it that at the end in this episode, the superpowers of Captain Marvel boil down to being like a fancy ambulance.
He's
like
super
really
fast.
all he does is carry the kid to safety.
What did you think about
Like-
the flying special effects? I thought those were halfway decent for what the
I
time and
love
all that
them.
kind of stuff.
I think they
love
were
them.
on par. I think they were on par with the old Superman TV show, which is
Yes,
not
they
bad.
were.
Yeah, with what you got, and they weren't all. It wasn't always the same crummy background or everything. You're just like, oh, this background again, and especially coming from an animation company, you know, you'd be.
And they did have full body flying. There were some shows back then that would try to pull off where you bend at the waist and they only like show your upper torso in the frame.
And I do like he was coming out several different angles and stuff like that. Like they did a good job.
And you could tell by the way the cape draped from the effect of gravity that they didn't just Dutch up the camera. They actually had him laying on a slant, have him flying slanted.
Yeah.
Like I guess nobody understood you could Dutch up the camera and get that same effect.
They worked really hard back then, and they had to focus on getting the wind to move the cape ever so slightly.
And you know what? I might be foolish to say that. I honestly don't know enough about 1974 camera technology. Maybe you couldn't Dutch the camera. Like they were big pieces of furniture, so maybe it wasn't an option for them.
You could totally Dutch
Yeah.
a camera then.
Yeah, absolutely. That was going on way back when.
I heard you had to like dig a hole and put the camera down in the hole to Dutch it. Like you had to dig a hole under two wheels on it. or
Oh,
whatever.
you never heard that? Dig a Dutchie hole?
Yeah, somebody told me that once, and I thought it was a rude insult.
How dare you,
go
sir.
dig a Dutchie hole.
But again, like the great, like you said there, the lesson to be learned at the end of all this is like, hey, don't spit on blind people.
I just really, once again, I wish that in the first episode he had flown down and said, never hide in a car that is near a car crushing device. At this one, I wish Captain Marvel would have just flown down, landed, and said, I bet that kid plays a mean pinball, and then fly off.
And then it just crashes to the Who, and then you're good to go.
I also like it that the Winnebago ran out of gas. I guess that was the funny ending.
It was the funny ending, and he just looks at it like, no, geez.
You think Captain Marvel could fly out and get us some gas?
And he goes, no, we're not going to do that. It's just like,
there was lightning, there was thunder.
Yeah, which I assume was the animated lips only. Only the lips are animated matte painting elders or whatever that sent that lightning.
Felt very, very corner cutting with all that stuff. Where they're just like, we'll go back to these animated people. We'll show that a couple of more times. Mouths moving. It's very, very Teletubbies-esque. We're going to show you the same thing 2-3 times. You won't know the difference because you're. And
I like this '70s mentality. Like, we need an episode where he reveals his identity to somebody, but he's going to reveal it to a blind kid, and blind people don't really count. Like that was the '70s mentality there too.
Yeah.
And the kid didn't really care, but I'll tell you this: good kid, keeping that secret. He goes, oh yeah, he's back there. Wink, wink. He did rub his eyes at one point, which I wasn't quite sure the point of that, but
they probably itched.
You know how blind kids' eyes itch. Well, we're almost there. We're almost home, everybody. We're going to rate this bad boy, but there's one more important thing we got to do before all of that. We have to ask ourselves, how does this television show from the 70s relate to one Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Everyone who watches the 1974 Shazam always says the same thing. The costumes on this show are amazing. Who is responsible for these glorious costumes? And look no further. The costumes are all due to one woman, and her name is Thalia Phillips. Thalia Phillips started her career on the 1969 movie called They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Which is a really good title if you're trying to bum people out. Thalia Phillips got out of the movie business in 1978 when she worked on the Buddy Holly story, which stars Gary Busey, before he went bananas and thought he was seeing angels everywhere. Did Thalia Phillips leave the business? Well, I did some digging, and she is still alive. She's 81 years old, lives in Palm Springs, California, and if location is any indicator, she's very happy with her life, probably prattling on about the halcyon days of yore, like in 1979 when she worked on a movie everyone was asking for, a movie about unionizing Teamsters called Fist, starring a bunch of character actors in the 70s and a man who thought wearing fingerless weightlifting gloves in everyday life was a good idea, Sylvester Stallone. Fist is the first movie credit for writer Joe Esterhaus, who was responsible for writing so very many bad movies in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
But he also wrote Flashdance, which is okay. Weirdly, Thalia Phillips was only a costume designer once, and it was on Shazam, and she disappeared from film production altogether 2 years after that show was canceled. Thalia Phillips may not have had a great time working on this show, and you know who else didn't? IMDb user, man, I knew I was going to catch myself here. Thalia Phillips might not have had a great time working on the show, and you know who didn't have a good time watching the show? Some of the IMDb user reviews. Some of the IMDb users who leave reviews. There you go, buddy. A user who goes by the name DeWorldMig1 wrote a review titled, "Not the Same." This kitschy show was fun to watch, but the 1940s serial with Tom Tyler is truer to the comic book version. That is a must-see for real fans of the character.
Real ones.
True fans. Real true fans. Okay. Well, there you have it, Joni and Chachi. This week's Stallone connection is Thalia Phillips. Thank you. I'm Sean Koufax. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. Head on over to Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast, like the page, and check out that Robin rating system. Bruce, where does the first 2 episodes of Shazam from 1974 fall in the Robin rating for you, sir?
There is some good nostalgic fun to watching this. And there's really good news, too. If you like one episode, you're going to like every episode. But the reverse is also true. If you don't like an episode, you're probably not going to find any, like, polishable gems buried in there. But I have good fun with this. And this is definitely laugh at them fun, not laugh with them fun. This is my kind of camp, which is we really tried our best, and this is still what we came up with. I like that better than intentional camp in most cases. Not something that's real binge worthy because, like I said before, it's just like the same episode for, 49 times or however many total episodes there are. Jackson Bostwick is ridiculous in a good way. The guy they replace him with is no Jackson Bostwick, but he's also, okay. I think people should watch it. I think they should watch at least one episode and laugh at it a little bit. It's something great if you don't have anything to do and you're like, it would be fun, something ridiculous. Let's watch Shazam. So I'm going to give this like a high-end Tim Drake, like a Tim Drake. I understand that it's problematic, but that's the fun.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Bruce says. And here's the thing. It's one of those, do you have like 4 minutes to kill? Because that's all this is. It's real quick. It's down and dirty. Yeah, you're sure getting the same thing all the time, but that's how a lot of like sitcoms are if we're truly honest with ourselves. But it's a lot of fun. It's stupid, but it's stupid in a good, fun way. And everything from the 70s is just fantastic. And I don't know, it was a lot more fun than I anticipated. But so a large Tim Drake for me.
Very, very high Tim Drake for me. I love this show so much. Yes, we watched 2 episodes. I will watch more probably. I love everything about this. I think I said it at the beginning of the show. This is the reason why I love this podcast. The show is exactly the reason why this is a great idea. And I whenever we run across stuff like this, it just makes me so very, very happy that we get to watch this stuff with a reason. Because if there was no reason for watching this stuff, you're just doing it for funsies, I would have a problem saying that to myself. Like, oh, hey, I'm just going to watch this because it's hilarious and fun.
Yeah.
I honestly, man, DC Universe, the streaming app, people have had different feelings about it, but I think it's really breathed a little bit of new enthusiasm into our show. It's a well we've gone to a few times and always had good discussions coming out of it. And there's still more that we haven't dove into yet that's on there.
Because a lot of crazy things happened in the 60s and 70s that they were like, why not?
Yeah.
Sounds like a great plan. Mark it up. We'll do it, and it'll be super successful. But yeah, we liked it all around here, but here's the real question, boys. Next week, will the real, quote-unquote, real Shazam have anything to stand on? I don't know that it's going to have a blind kid in it. I doubt it. We do have a handicapped kid, but as far as I can tell from the trailers, he sees. And, while that's okay, I'd rather that kid be blind. But we'll have to worry about that next week. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the interwebs?
Oh, we're still going strong on Chubby Wizard. We talked about all kinds of good stuff last week. In fact, it was so good, I can't remember a single topic. But this week, we will be reviewing DC Comics, Detective Comics number 1000. Not often you get to review a number 1000 issue of something. So that'll be a big topic on the upcoming episode.
Is that, I know there's several stories in there. Are they all drawn by Jim Lee, or is it just one story?
No. It's a host of artists. And then they also have a variety of covers done by different cover artists. And I'm a little bummed. I think they had Bruce Timm do the 1940s cover, which kind of makes sense with his art style.
Yeah.
But I honestly think they should have had his Batman the Animated Series art style for the 90s cover. I think that would have made more sense.
Yeah, that's true. Sean?
I have a friend who has a website. And it's pretty good. It's called Hero Movie Podcast. Go to our website, and you can find out everything about Hero Movie Podcast there at the website, heromoviepodcast.com.
Indeed. I want to spend my time this week just congratulating a friend of mine. He was one of the people that I guess I could say influenced me to do some podcasting and stuff. My friend Bill Fulkerson, he does Outside the Cinema. I just got to see his first documentary today, Survival of the Film Freaks. And it was a really good time. If you want to check that out, just look Survival of the Film Freaks on Indiegogo. They just met their goal there for everything, but couldn't happen to a nicer guy and everything. So I just wanted to have people check that out. It's got a lot of great people in it. Everybody from like Joe Bob Briggs to Ted Raimi, Adam Green, a whole bunch of people, and it covers a wide variety of topics from film, from even the 80s all the way to today and beyond. So check that out. It's called Survival of the Film Freaks. It's on Indiegogo now. Check that out.
Very cool.
That is it, everybody. Join us next week for Shazam on the big screen. For Sean Koufax, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
A sneaker, chicken tikka, masala at a gala event. I represent that stupid, that's for sure. You'd be like, oh yeah, Adam, real mature.
I like a lettuce, tomatoes, and monster on by. All this cheese gonna make me cry. Gorgonzola, provolone. Don't even get me started on this microphone.
I'm blowing up like my name is Joe Bazooka. I'm a super duper MC party people on a track so sick and make you feel all queasy and make you do like Fred said, but without coming wheezy.
On the court I go by the name Praying Mantis. Got the edge and I got the advantage. If you could see things from my vantage point, then you could better understand
I'm in
this.
the lab all day, I scrabble all night. I got a bedazzler so my outfit's tight. When it comes to panache, I can't be beat. I got the most style from below 14th Street. Internationally known as a Keebler elf. I can't keep a catalog up on the shelf. You know I splash on beats like sauce on spaghetti, putting MCs out of business like they crazy Yeti.
I know you're sitting pretty in the Hampty Hams, posing like you're rolling with that camp. In layman's terms, let me break